Welcome everyone to the Inspired Choices TV show. I am your host, Christine McIver. I'm very excited to be in the studio today. I have a fabulous guest with me. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about Inspired Choices TV. This is a TV show that we interview others out in the world who are inspiring and making a difference. They're contributing to the world and creating the world that they desire to live in and to leave a legacy in. So I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to have a wonderful guest. I have Wendy Paquette with me, and today we're talking about awakening humanitarians' greatness. I'm very excited to talk to you about this. But before we get going, I want to tell you about Wendy. She's a very fascinating woman. So Wendy is a high vibration being and a human potential wizard with a background in human development, leadership coaching, deep state theta meditation, quantum healing hypnosis therapy. My goodness, these are tongue twisters. Energetic interference patterning of DNA, energy medicine, access consciousness, Yuen Method, and business. All things business, of course. You're always in business. You wouldn't be surprised to know that she had what she calls an enlightened experience and woke to know the holographic multiverse in oneness. I'm so excited to hear about this. Followed by an encounter with the God of RA that continues to illuminate a feminine Christ consciousness way. The divine gift that was delivered to her in an instant allowed her to see, read, and transmute mind frequencies that are held in the brain, in other words, programs, and used against you, wreaking havoc everywhere you look. What she does with that discovery is nothing short of a modern-day miracle or instant mental manifestation. She's a visionary on a quest to support beautiful humans in awakening to their true divine conscious selves, actualize and embody their zone of genius, and change the world from where they stand. Wendy is also a radio and podcast host on her show, The Crossroads to Awakening, on the Inspired Choices Network, on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is an amazing autobiography or biography. This is something I am so excited to talk to you about. Although Wendy and I know each other quite well, we're both very busy women and we don't get to sit and talk a great deal.
That is true.
So Wendy, tell me, let's start at the beginning. Where were you born and raised, and how did you, kind of bring us to the point of this awakening journey that you started on?
Okay, so I suppose, well, I was born and raised in Kingsville, Ontario.
Okay.
And I moved a lot as a teenager, late teenager, early 20-year-old. But I spent the majority of my time in Ontario. I have had really interesting energy experiences, I guess you'd say, from the age of 16 on, which put me on a quest to actually see what this world was really about, because it took my linear aspect of life, my black and white world, and totally colored it with things that I didn't even know were possible. So that kind of started the journey, and then that quest led me from, I think I first dove into reflexology. So it was about the body and how the body responded to a lot of things, and then went from one thing to another to an enlightenment experience. And that was not that long ago, 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
And so prior to the body of work that you do today, what were you doing as your profession? Did you go to college, university?
Yeah, many times. A woman of many interests. I think learning is a quest that I'm always on. It's a thirst for knowledge.
Yes.
But I've done everything from being in the financial world and raised myself into a position of a regional manager at a financial institution in London, Ontario, when I was 21, to find that women at the age of 21 were not heard, and especially in the financial institution. In that arena, nobody wanted to hear what I had to say, no matter how smart I was. So that kind of propelled me into curiosity as where would I fit in?
Right.
So artist, actor. I went to school for acting and had so much fun finding my way in improv and standing in front of people, public speaking. That was really fun. Film and television is where I went.
Wow.
So that was interesting.
Were you in any famous films that anyone will remember?
My first film, while I was still in school, I went to Wayne State University, was at Real Steel, one with Hugh Jackman and the robots.
Ooh.
Battling robots. So that was fun. I wasn't nothing that you could see me in as you look through the film itself, but that was my first experience. And I had a conversation with him, in which you're not really supposed to do. But of course I would.
Of course you would.
Of course I would, yeah.
What did you gain from that experience that you actually utilize today?
All of it. It was more being creative in any capacity wakes your energetic side, your spiritual side, because you're connecting with something that you can't learn by going to school. You can learn the mechanics of art, but you can't learn your own creativity. That's something that's birthed out of you. And so connecting with that energetic, spiritual aspect of myself allowed me to be super creative, embody characters in acting school that, you know, was so much fun because it wasn't being me. And that's the biggest lesson I believe I learned, was being someone else is easy. Being me was hard.
That's fascinating.
It was super fascinating. And so the quest for me was, who am I? Which is most people's curiosity.
Right.
And what am I up to in the world? And so that creates a journey that, you know, you can't even plan that out for yourself if you tried.
Right. I would imagine that because you were in that industry playing other people, oftentimes you were kind of faced with that question more in your face, as it were. For most of us, it's maybe around a certain age, around a certain birthday, that we might start to look at that.
Yeah, well, learning the art of acting is more embodying a character that a producer, director, and writer would like you to be. And so allowing yourself to step into a new world and then become that world, and then pull backstories and things of that nature into that reality, it really opens up your creativity, because now you're allowing yourself to explore different areas that you might never, ever have an opportunity to be in your actual life. So it's pretty amazing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so from there, did that career ever finish? Did that aspect of your life ever come to a conclusion?
No, well, what I learned was how to speak to the camera, how to speak to the humans that are watching on the other side, and how to deliver a message without feeling like it's a 2D world or a 3D world where we're just seeing it, it's not actually landing. So connecting energetically was a big part of what I learned.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very cool. And so as you moved forward, and when you had your first awakening, 2014,
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of give us a little bit of insight into what that was like?
Yeah, after reflexology, like I dove into reflexology really early just to see what it was, but I never got certified in it. But every energy medicine that came around, or every maybe a healing world thing that came around where you can heal your body, I just had this knowing that you could. Mm-hmm. Something inside me was like, everyone can heal their body. Everyone can heal their mind. Everyone can heal themselves in every aspect. And knowing that is one thing, but how you do it was the thing that I was after. I'm like, okay, I know that it's possible, but how do you do it? I want to see evidence. So I took all these classes in order to learn the mm-hmm. aspects of how the body and the mind communicate with, you know, the energies that be. So there's a lot of science involved as well. So it's putting science and, say, religion or spirituality together, mm-hmm. making sense of it. And what occurred moving through was I was capable of creating massive results for people that were coming to me with their issues. The QHHT, which is a quantum healing hypnosis therapy, bringing people into a deep state theta hypnosis, and then they handed me questions. Here's all my issues. How do I solve them? And the best role I had was, okay, great, let's find out. Pull them into a deep state theta hypnosis, so deep that I could get them to connect with their higher self and then channel their own higher self. And then I would take their questions and ask them their own questions, and they would answer them in that state. It was profound. And so I realized you could ask the higher self to heal their body, or to identify issues. Maybe they were unknown, or maybe they were ignoring, just all kinds of things. So I started playing with that reality to see what was possible. And it was one day that everything looked perfect. Massive miracles happening. My mom's best friend had a huge, profound experience, you know, with me, in that right. She had physical healing. She saw her then late husband. I think it was a decade or two that he had passed away. He came to her, and she didn't even believe that was possible in one of the sessions. And after she left, I sat at my kitchen table and I realized that after all these amazing things that were occurring, everything looks beautiful and perfect, but I felt profoundly sad, like deeply, deeply sad. And I started to cry, and I'm thinking, that is it. Like, this is it. This life sucks.
So were you having that experience after each person that you were working with?
I think there was elements of that there, of like a deep curiosity, like, wow, that's possible. But what I hadn't done was discover it for myself. So there's a separateness in it happening to you, and I'm facilitating it.
Yes.
But I'm deeply sad, and what the hell's going on with me that I can sit in my home, beautiful home, it's perfect outside, people are getting healed, they're coming to me. What the hell's going on with me that I'm deeply sad? And there was a moment of like realization that something had to change, and it was going to change like in that moment. Because if I could create that for someone else, I wanted it for myself.
Right.
And why was I creating this for other people? Like, it didn't have any connection. Why was I choosing it? Just for sheer curiosity.
Right.
So that day was the day that I evoked my own enlightenment experience. It was super profound.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Have you written about this experience?
I have, but not shared it. I mean, it was, well, if I can tell you the story, if you want to hear it. It's pretty profound. It was taking myself to the space of looking into my own eyes in the bathroom. I was like so angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at, you know how you hear ask and it is given?
Yes.
And there's energies in the world. Maybe there's entities, maybe there's angels, guardian angels, there's God, there's everything, but you can't see it. And because you can't see it, how can you believe it, right?
Yes.
So there's that separateness of, okay, I want to, is it the deep state of want to believe it that causes you to, have those experiences? And I was so adamant that I wanted to understand that I was crying, I was angry, I was like hand fisting, myself into a moment. I walked myself into the bathroom and I looked myself in the eyes in the mirror and I demanded my gift to arrive. I'm like, if this is what I meant to be, I'm like talking to the energies. Okay, so they say, ask and it is given. Okay, I'm asking. This is me asking. And in case you're not hearing a question, this is the question. Drop my flippin' gift on me now, or take me off this godforsaken hurling rock in the multiverse because it sucks here. I'm not happy. And I know that joy is a way of being that I get to be. And I was like crying, and it was one of those moments. Where I generally meditate is in the bathtub because it feels like a conduit. I'm in water, things arrive. I had over a decade or more of meditating in the bathtub and having, relaxing, peaceful experiences where I was gifted an understanding of a lot of things. So this time I decided to go in that moment, and I'm like drop it on me now. And I'm not joking. I'm like, I need a master to show up that I know knows more than me, that I can listen to, hear, and get guidance from in this moment now.
Yes.
And so I hopped into the tub and I took myself through the sessions that I would take others through, which they say not to do. I was like, screw that, I'm doing it anyway.
You're Wendy.
Yes, well, and I was angry, and I'm like, screw that, I'm doing this myself.
Yes.
And so I did, and what occurred was, when I was complete, I said the same thing that every single one of my clients would say. Did that actually just happen? Now, fortunately, I would record all of them audio so I could be able to hand them so they could see that it did occur. But for myself,
you did not.
No. And so when I went in, I had an interesting experience where it was like a multi-dimensional experience where I could hear myself thinking. I also experienced myself as a guide or a higher self.
Yes.
And then someone who's experiencing like a witness that's experiencing both of those pieces. So it was almost like a trinity of an experience.
Wow.
I didn't realize it till it was complete, but I could hear it almost like I was talking to myself in multiple dimensions.
Yes.
And took myself through the experience. In the meditation, you take someone to their happy place, right? And so my happy place is the beach. I go to the beach, I'm on the beach, I'm happy, I'm like, yeah, my happy place. And I'm like running my hand through the sand, and the sand turned into a vortex. And the vortex sucked me in. And I was like, okay, this is in my meditation.
Yes.
So I'm just following it through, and I land in what looks like a cement box. Cement room. I'm sitting on a cement something or other. It feels cold, it feels damp, it feels dark. Not too dark, but dark enough. And I'm thinking, well, this sucks exactly how I see my life right now.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, well, I'm asking for a master to show up. And I noticed out of the peripheral corner of my eye, someone's sitting at a cement desk over here. And they're just sitting there. And that's when I noticed the other aspects of myself, like, what's the matter? Are you afraid? Are you afraid to look? This is what you asked for, you think. And I was like, I'm not afraid. Like, I'm going to look.
And this is all in meditation.
This is my meditation. Like,
Okay.
this is happening in my meditation where
Wow.
I'm talking to myself in this moment going, well, this is what you asked for. What are you afraid of? You afraid of something now? And I'm like, no, I'm looking. And I turned my head to look. And let me tell you, I'm not a religious person. I grew up Catholic, but I didn't embody the Catholic, way. I just believed in all aspects that they're getting someone to somewhere and they're believing in something higher than themselves.
Right.
But
Wendy, we're going to take a break. We're going to have everybody, just hold on. We're going to go for break. I really want to hear this, and I know everybody else will too. But we do need to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to hear the end of this story. And then we're going to really talk about what you're doing in the world now with all of these experiences.
Let me tell you, juicy.
This is great.
You want to know who that is?
I cannot wait to hear this. Okay, everyone, stick around. We're going to go for a quick break. When we get back, we're going to continue to speak with Wendy Paquette all about awakening humanitarians in the world. Stay tuned. Have you thought about bringing your voice to the world? Are you looking to have a global platform that you can connect with? At Inspired Choices Network, we create an opportunity for you to bring your voice each and every week to a global platform. We support you, we train you, we bring your podcast out to more than 50 platforms. We are a network of building a community where we're bringing conscious voices to the world. If you're looking to have more of an opportunity, if you're looking to bring what you know to the world, do connect with us. You can contact us at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, or you can send an email to becomingahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. We'll have a conversation and we'll show you what truly is possible. Welcome everyone to the Inspired Choices TV show. Today we are talking with Wendy Paquette. We're talking all about awakening humanity's greatness. And just before break, Wendy had us on the cliff of what was happening with this amazing demand that you put into your world about your gift. So please continue. You're about to look in over your shoulder.
I'm going to look to this cement desk where there's someone sitting.
Yes.
Where from the peripheral, they're fuzzy. And so I choose to look. And who it is, or who it was God. You know, the proverbial picture that your grandparents had that was like up on the wall, really high, far too high to see as a kid, with the robe and the sash and the long hair. And he just looked at me. And I was like, oh,
Hi there.
okay. Right? I wasn't expecting him, but I
Yes.
did ask for a master. And he stood up, and he was very tall, from where I was like 7, 8 feet tall is what it felt like. And he walked around this cement desk, and he looked at me, and I had 0 words. And he opened up his arms to give me a hug. And in my mind, in my moment, I was like, oh, I'm a hugger. Okay. Okay. So I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh. And I could feel the expansive energy of this being. And he was so tall. My cheek was like in his belly. I was like, oh, right? And then in that moment, all of a sudden he was like, boop, and he disappeared inside of me. And I'm like, okay, now what? Like in my mind, that's all I could think. Like, okay, like he just disappeared. Like, did he go away? And what occurred was he said, while he had disappeared in there, he said, I heard his voice say, your first task is to love with my heart.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. I had no response. I had no questions. I didn't know anything. And then I found myself continuing on with my experience with doing the hypnosis session on myself. And by the time I was done, that's when I went to get out of the bathtub when I was complete. And I had that thought, did that actually just happen to me? And it took about 8 months to actually figure it out. I mean, I found myself, I don't know what happened within the next couple of days. It's kind of gone from my memory. But one thing I do remember is sitting downstairs in the basement at my house in the living room with books all around, and I'm hunting for what just happened to me. Like, I'm trying to find the answer in books because I just didn't know what that meant. And my husband happened to come downstairs, and he was sitting on the couch, and I'm sitting on the coffee table, and I'm going through all these books, and I was getting annoyed by his presence. I'm like, why is he looking at me? Like, why is he staring at me? And so I finally looked at him, and I'm like, what are you doing? And my husband looked at me and he goes, what are you doing? I was like, oh. He like kind of brought me back to the moment. And I realized, I'm like, okay, so born and raised Catholic, he was an altar boy. If I'm going to get judged, this is where I'm going to get judged. I'm going to tell him the story. And so I did. And I said, you know, sometimes in meditation you see other things. He's like, yeah. I'm speaking of myself. And he's like, yeah. I go, well, God showed up. And I started to bawl and cry and cry. And in that moment I realized it actually had happened because I'm vocalizing it.
Yes.
And his response, I'll never forget it. He says, why are you crying? Haven't you ever heard of anyone seeing God before? I'm like,
out of left field.
I was like, okay. It was one of those moments like, I'll never forget it. And it took me 8 months for me to actually realize what I was gifted in that moment. That moment, I understood the universe from a space of oneness because God disappearing inside of me deleted separateness and caused me to see everything as oneness. But it took me 8 months to figure it out because you think everybody says, oh yeah, give it to me now. I want my gift now. They want it now. You know, I'm here to tell you that having it in an instant really messes with your mind because I didn't know what I was looking at. Because everything had aspects of me in it.
Yeah, it's interesting. During my awakenings at different times, I can remember sitting and actually one of my teachers, and whatever occurred in that moment, I said, I'd really like to unknow all of this. Because consciousness is not comfortable.
No.
When you are moving through the challenges and you're awakening to the truth of everything about you and what's there, and you have to look at all of your stuff.
Oh, you get to see you everywhere.
Yes.
And it was, in what I discovered, it was, he eliminated separateness. I embodied his wholeness and saw everything as oneness. And that was my very first experience with that. And what came out of that, so what I'm doing now is I realized it was 8 months later when I was really frustrated with my husband about something that he had chosen. And I found myself asking the question, like, am I that? Am I? Like, is that me? Right?
Yes.
And I was holding my hand out, and I had, like, you know, that for some reason that was symbolic to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm not that. That's not me. I'm like, what am I going to do with it in my head? And I knew, I'm going to love that with God's heart. And so I found myself doing a process and saying certain words that came, I don't even know where, obviously, it came from otherworldly spaces, but I was able to transmute frequencies from that frustration where the emotion's attached to source energy, which is like the energy of all that is. So it has no judgment to it. And so I realized it afterwards that there was a process that was delivered to me that I didn't know that I had until I said it. And then when I found something else I was frustrated with, I tried it again. The same thing happened to me. The same process came out of me, same words, same actions. And merely asking the question, like, am I that?
Yes.
Am I that? Am I? Later, excuse me, I find out that I'm led to the Moses Code book by Bruce Lipton. I'm so curious about this burning bush story. I'm like, I gotta know the story. I don't know why, I have to know the story. I get the book, I'm reading it, and in the story, when Moses asks the burning bush, and which is God, what is your name? He says, I am that I am. Well, I'm writing down, I am that I am, and then I'm like, I ask myself the question, am I that? Am I? Am I that? Am I? Oh, exact words backwards. Okay, and all of a sudden it like came in. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the magic. That was the magic to me. It showed me what was happening, taking the frequencies and shifting them. Now, I've learned that I can read them and see them and know them and their words with frequencies, But what was actually happening was utilizing that God, the Christ frequency to transmute those energies into source energy. And that literally changes your life, because we are oneness. So everything you see is a reflection of your inner world.
Yes.
Programs belong here. So you're seeing everything based on what you've decided. And when you change this, which is changing the frequencies, your outside world actually changes.
That's awesome.
And so that's been the work that I've been doing for the last like 6.5, 7 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
You must find, because, you know, many of our listeners might be going, okay, she's a little over the edge.
Yeah.
You must find that a lot of people actually have that experience of you initially.
If they do, I find now if they find me, it's because they're sick of their stuff. They're so ready to shift, and they're so ready to hear and be something different that they don't. That was my fear in the beginning. I'm like, I'm not telling anybody this.
Yes.
This is insane. They're going to think I'm freaking crazy. I'm not saying this out loud. And I really struggled for, gosh, probably a year or more, 6 years until I could actually say out loud without, like, even on, you know, on the TV, which will be out there forever. I'm unafraid in this moment, because it's what humanity gets to have. And that's seeing humanity's greatness, is being able to see the programs that are stuck and transmute them so they're no longer in that space. And their reality actually shifts. Their bigness shifts. Their way of showing up in the world with everyone shifts. The way they see their relationships and their lives and everything they're doing, their abundance. Everything changes, and it's, to me, so simple, and it comes from such a joyful space.
That's beautiful.
But it took years to get here. I mean, it didn't come easy. There was a lot of mental strife that I put myself through, but it was quite the gift.
It's a fascinating journey. Mm-hmm. So we've just got a couple minutes left, Wendy, but what can people expect when they connect with you and they begin to work with you?
Connecting with me is one thing, because actually reaching out and being able to face themselves, I'm finding that's what's occurring. If you're afraid of what is in your own mental closet, you'll have a hard time reaching out to me, because I show it to you because I can read it I can read it in your frequency. Right. So most people that show up really are ready, and they are really craving something that's more joyful, more peaceful, wonderful, something that changes their world. So what they can expect is an actual reality shift, moving from where they're at to somewhere that they would like to be.
And Wendy is not someone that just tiptoes around. You are very direct and you're in the moment. Well, you're very present, and that is something I really appreciate, that you're not someone who's putting up a veil or a mask. You really show up, you really see the person, and you move. Your radio show is fantastic. Your podcast, I love listening to it. I don't get to listen to it as often as I want to, but I love it. And you're very direct on there. So if people want to connect with you, if they're brave enough, your website is wendypaquette.com. wendypaquette.com. We'll have it along the bottom in the connections. And thank you so much for being here. This has been it felt like this was 2 minutes of listening to you. It went so quickly. I love what you're doing in the world. I love how you're changing the world and being the invitation and being brave to be vulnerable. Thank you for sharing all of that with us today, and with everybody that you're connecting with.
Well, thank you for having me. It feels like a dream to say it out loud and not care. Say it out loud and go, yeah, so that's what it is.
How lucky are we that you actually did that with us? Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please tune in again, where we will have another inspiring guest that's changing the world. You just never know what the conversations are going to be here on Inspired Choices TV. So you can connect with me, Christine, at inspiredchoices.ca, or you can go over to inspiredchoicesnetwork.com to catch all of our TV episodes. Until next time, remember, you can always make another choice.